All right, let's get ready for tomorrow's quiz. So, yes. Why? Why now?
You want to write down the right answer.
Oh, can't write it down on. Can't write them down on your sheet. I thought you were going to use this for homework again tonight.
No, yeah. I don't know.
Couldn't hear you. See? I needed
We start charging.
I keep hearing that.
Make some money.
I don't have it was good. Okay. Yeah.
We're playing a quiet game. Yeah, don't ever watch that game again.
All right, so the first two, you have to complete the square and factor it. Okay? So, how do I fill in the blank? Ten divided by two, right? The b is 10. So the b value 10 divided by 2 is 5. Then you square it. So the number that goes in there is 25. And then what we have done is made it a perfect square trinomial, so we can factor it in this form as a binomial squared, two terms. The square root of x squared is x, and again, remember, to do this, a has to be 1, right? The symbol in front of the b value, in front of the 10, is addition, so that goes there. And then the square root of the number we just put in the blank. What's the square root of 25? 5. So that's what you're supposed to do for the first two tomorrow, is fill in that blank, add the blank, and then factor it. So number 2, we have an odd number for our b values. So add your blank. What did I tell you to do when it was an odd number? Did I tell you to use 4.5 in squared, or did I tell you to use 9 over 2 in squared? 9 over 2, yeah. So when it's an odd number, just write it as a fraction. What's 9 squared? 81. What's 2 squared? 4. So 81 fourths should be in the blank. If you had 20.25, I guess I can give you credit because that's what that is, right? But I told you it's easier when you end up solving these to leave it in fraction form, because we put it in simplest radical form, so the fraction makes it easier. So again, I take the square root of the x squared, the symbol in front of the b, which is minus this time, and then the square root of the 81 fourths, which is the square root of 81 is 9 and the 4 is 2. So there's the first two. So tomorrow, if you get an odd one, just write it over 2 and then square the numerator and denominator to fill in the blank. All right. Now 3 and 4, we actually have to solve these. Okay, so we're doing this fill in the blank stuff, but we're actually finding out what x equals. So here's our equation. What kind of equations are these called again? What kind of these are they? The method is completing the square, but what's the name of the type of equation when it's x squared? Caitlin? Yeah, quadratic equations we're solving. So when we do this method again, completing the square, we keep our a and b together, our x squared and our x, add a blank, and we take the c value to the other side. How do I move it to the other side? Subtract it. So it becomes -3 on the other side. now we do what we did on the first two. Half of b, which is 6 this time, so 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then square your 3 so you get 9 in our blanks. All right, since we made it one of those special trinomials, I can factor it into this. The square root of x squared and the square root of 9, and then there's a plus sign in front of our 6, so that's why it's x plus 3 squared, and then negative 3 plus 9 is 6. Now I can solve for x. What's the first step to solve for x here? Square root. Got to get rid of that squared symbol, right? So when we take the square root of both sides, the left side is x plus 3. And the right side, can we simplify the square root of 6? No, just 2 times 3. Neither one of those has a perfect square factor in it. We still need that plus or minus symbol, though. Don't forget that. So to finish up, we're going to get the 3 to the other side. So our answer is x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 6. Any questions on that? Okay. Yeah. All right, Dale.
With problems like that, we don't use the 9/2 for the odd numbers.
Yeah, we would, but 6 isn't odd.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
All right. But yeah, if that was 9x in the middle, then we would have used 9/2 squared. Yeah. Any other questions on number 3?
I knew it.
Okay. Number 4, what do we have to do first? Divide everything by 4. Good. Because our a value is 4, we can't complete the square until we make it a 1. So we're going to divide all of these terms in the equation by that 4, so we get it to be a 1x squared. What is that? Negative 17, right? When I divide 68 by 4. Okay, so what's half of 8?
4.
4, and what's 4 squared? 16. Questions on filling in the blank? All right, so now we're going to factor this. Square root of x squared plus in front of the 8, square root of 16 is 4, and squared. When I add those two terms, I get a negative 1. So now I take the square root of both sides to get rid of that squared part, so that I have x plus 4 now. What's the square root of negative 1? I, yeah. We have learned that a while back, right? The square root of negative 1 is that imaginary unit, that I. So to finish up, I just subtract my 4 over. So we get x equals negative 4 plus or minus I. Any questions? All right, so the next two, we're not actually solving the equation, we're rewriting the equation in vertex form. It's given to you in standard form, we have to change it to vertex form, and then you got to tell me what the vertex is. All right, so it's basically doing the exact same thing, we're just not solving like we did in 3 and 4. Okay, so we just think of this as trying to solve it to start. Okay, don't worry about the y equals part. Just keep it as x squared minus 8x plus blank, and take that 18 to the other side, just like we were doing for 3 and 4, okay? Again, we have an even number, an 8 here. What's half of 8? 4, and squared is 16. That was the last one we had an 8 too, didn't we? All right? So then I factor it. Square root of x squared is x. There's a minus sign in front of our b. And then the square root of 16 is 4. We get squared. Now, the last two, right now, we would take the square root of both sides. This is not what we need to do here. All we need to do now is bring the 2 back over with the x minus 4. So how do I bring it back over? We add it. So we can write y equals, bring the y back, x minus 4 squared plus 2. That's vertex form. Okay? You also have to tell me what the vertex is. AJ, what's the vertex?
4.
Very good. So it's the opposite of the number that's with the x. So it's a negative 4 or minus 4 in there. It's positive 4, and then it's whatever's outside, positive 2. Questions? So we do everything the same until that spot where we're supposed to square root both sides. We're going to just bring the number on the right back over, and now we have it in vertex form. Okay? Questions? Okay. Number 6. So again, we have an equation. We're going to not worry about the y. We're going to treat this like we were going to solve it. Our a value is 1, so I don't have to divide by anything. And this time I'm taking half of 12, which is what? 6. And then what's 6 squared? 36. Okay, so we factor that. Square root of x squared minus in front of the 12. Square root of 36 is 6 squared. And negative 18 plus 36 is 18. So again, we don't have to square root here. We just bring the 18 back across with the x minus 6. So it's y equals x minus 6 squared, and then we're going to subtract the 18 to bring it back. So there's our vertex form. Caitlin, what's my vertex?
6 negative 18.
Thank you. Any questions on 5 and 6? We got those now. Some of you were struggling with those two. Good? Okay. 7 and 8, we're using the quadratic formula. Okay? You're supposed to know this. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. Make sure you guys in the back are paying attention, please. All right? So that's the formula we're going to use for 7 and 8. You don't have to have a be 1 like you do for completing the square. A can be any value. You don't have to do any dividing out. Okay? Some of you try to do that. You don't have to do that. So no, for number 7, our equation is negative x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So A is negative 1, B is negative 5, C is positive 6. We're just going to put those numbers into the formula. All right, so x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. Any questions on substituting in? I remember a was negative 1. All right, since I got a negative out front of that negative 5, it's actually a positive 5. And then 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. All right, so negative 5 squared is 25. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Times 6 is a positive 24. 24 plus 4, 25 and 24 is 49. That's a nice number. Why? Perfect square, right. So we can finish this and actually get two answers, right? So remember, there's 5 plus 7, 12 divided by 2 is 6. And then 5 minus 7, negative 2 divided by 2, negative 1. So that came out to 2 nice whole numbers. Or integers, I guess, not whole numbers. Okay? We should go all the way when that happens. When our radical is a perfect square. Oh, it's negative 2, sorry. I don't know what happened to it. So that makes it negative 6, sorry, and positive 1. It should have stayed negative 2, not, don't forget about it. All right. All right, let's see if number 8 works out nice like that. Oh, there's no y equals on this one, is there? Equals 0. So we got x squared minus 4x minus 13. All right, so a is 1, b is negative 4. Again, you don't have to write this out, but if that helps you, go ahead. And c is negative 13. We just substitute it. We don't need to put any variables in this. Some people try to put the variables in as well. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. All right? So I get a positive 4, 2 negatives again, like the last one. This time I have a positive 2. All right, negative 4 squared is a positive 16. And negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times a negative 13 is a positive what? What's 4 times 13? 52? What's 16 plus 52? 68. So that's what's underneath the radical sign. Okay? So again, when you're putting this in your calculator, don't put that radical sign in there. Okay? You'll get some decimal. You don't want a decimal. You want to put it in radical form. Are there factors of 68 that has a perfect square in there? Yeah. 4 times 17, right? So what number can I pull out front? A 2, right? The square root of 4 is 2. There's no negative, so no reason to put an I out there. Is that what I'm expecting from you? No, why? You can simplify that fraction, right? What common factor do those numbers have? 2, right? So divide the 4s and the 2s by 2. Not the 17, that just stays there. 4 divided by 2 would be 2, and 2 divided by 2 would be 1. You don't have to put the 1. You can put over 1, you don't have to do that part either. If you want to leave the 1s out, that's okay. We're good on 7 and 8? Any questions? You know, Thursday and Friday you had lots of practice using that formula, right? Some of you just needed help simplifying a little bit. 9 and 10 says, find the discriminant of the quadratic equation and describe the number and type of solutions of the equation. So the discriminant is just the part under the radical sign. Okay, you're doing that part. Again, I would continue to use the parentheses in case you have negatives. It keeps your signs correct. So for number 9, we've got x squared minus 6x equals negative 7. So the first thing you want to do is set it equal to 0 so you get the right a, b, and c value. All right, so b squared would be negative 6 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 7. We're trying to figure out what that equals. Negative 6 times negative 6 is a positive 36. Negative 4 times 1 is a negative 4 times 7 is a negative 28. So that is 8, right? So if you get a positive number like that, how many solutions and what type? 2 real, right? When we get a positive answer like that. Okay, for number 10, we've got 4x squared minus 28x equals negative 49. So again, we want to set it equal to 0, so we're going to add 49. And then we do our b squared minus 4ac. And when you put that in your calculator, you get 0. So how many solutions and what type? 1 real. When it's 0 like that, there's 1 real. What's the other possibility? 2 imaginary. That's when you get what type of number? A negative number. Very good. So, will tomorrow's look any different than this? No, it will not. So make sure you're ready. And then Wednesday we'll have some bonus again. Quit throwing paper. Caleb, Berkey,
What?
why'd you throw stuff at me?
What? I'm not throwing.